Okay, we have, we're going to have the budget overview, so excuse me. And that would be handled by Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As part of this budget proposal, just want you to know that nothing in here has changed since the last reading, except for the revenue piece. This budget is based upon the most recent information we've gotten from the state and also using the most recent information we have as far as student enrollment this year and what we're projected to have for next year. And as you're aware, due to the change in the funding formula, that it does affect our school district. Not necessarily positively, but just, I guess, a brief overview is that our piece of the pie as far as state money goes will become smaller as time goes forward based on the current funding formula with the more at-risk districts receiving a bigger portion of state funds. The changes here are the same ones we had in our last meeting, but just so I'll briefly hit the highlights here. We had some startup funding for school resource officers and some printing services, and startup funding for 4K classes in this current fiscal year, which we were able to remove from our general fund, which helped alleviate some of the pressure, as well as the categorical funding that we're receiving for reading coaches. We were able to move some funding out of the general fund. Also, we are adding 5 teachers, 3 technology instructional specialists, 2 information resource technicians, a principal and an administrative assistant for the new middle school for half a year. The Air Force ROTC programs, junior ROTC programs at Irmo High School and Dutch Fork will be losing some funding due to the federal sequestration of funds. That is in our general fund. Our utilities and maintenance budget is increasing by $508,000. You'll see an increase in our communication budget, but that will also be offset by E-rate funding we see as revenue in our general fund. The categorical funding loss here for high achieving students and students at risk, those expenditures are now reflected in our general fund. We are using one-time money, carry-forward money, to reduce our burden on the general fund for next fiscal year. This is one, however, that we will have to address next year if we don't see an increase in funding. We've added 8 human resource interpretive services, homebound services, money for advanced ed accreditation, and then the biggest part of all of our increases in our budget are for the step increases for teachers and other employees that qualify. Health and dental benefits have increased, retirement's increased, and then any type of credential changes for teachers would cause this to change as well. This is just a chart showing how our revenue comes into us, and as you can see, approximately 37% of our, well, actually closer to 38% or so is funded locally, and the rest is state and tax reimbursement dollars. And this is just broken down a little bit different for you, so you can see it's state, local, and other. Here's the only change in this PowerPoint from our last meeting, and that's the current tax line of $57,990,934. This does reflect a 6.5 mil increase. Everything else being the same. These numbers are the same. So bottom line, we are now showing a operational balance of $667,000 we need to balance our budget with the millage increase. So our total expenditures will be $163,356,921. This is our general fund expenditures, proposed expenditures. With our thing I could point out here once again is approximately 89% of our budget is made up of salaries and fringe. And here's the numbers that back that chart up, which total $163,356,921. This is a formula for our millage cap. Our consumer price index, our increase, CPI is 1.46%. Our population growth is 1.37%, so we are allowed under the code to increase our millage by 2.83%. Currently, our general fund millage is set at 229.27 mils. The amount we can increase is 6.5 mils, which is reflected in our revenue budget. Here's our calculation with the millage increase. Our projected shortfall was $2.1 million. Excuse me. The value of a mill is projected to be $230,851 for next year, and the estimated amount of money we could bring in was $6.5 million. 6.5 mils is $1.5 million, which will leave us with a $667,000 shortfall. Just to recap that for you, projected revenue of $162.6 million, projected expenditures of $163.3, and our shortfall of $668,000. This is what the cost would be to an individual taxpayer in our district if the board does opt to increase millage. The owner of a $20,000 automobile would see their taxes go up approximately $7.80 for every $20,000 worth of assessment. Of course, homes, owner-occupied homes are exempt from this tax, and any other business or personal property, for each $100,000 of assessed value, the taxes would increase $39. This is what our budget looks like without a millage increase. Our projected revenue of $162,689,207, and our projected expenditures of $163,356,921 would leave us a projected shortfall of $2,168,248. That, in a nutshell, is the general fund budget. I'd be glad to try to address any questions that you might have.
I'm going back to the slide, proposed expenditure changes, which is on page 2 of the handout you gave us.
Yes, sir.
And the categorical funding loss, is that the adjustment the state made to the funding formula?
Yes, sir. That's the amount that we will reduce categorically that will now be funded through the EFA formula.
Okay, so that's the new change that
yes,
works to our detriment.
Yes,
so
sir.
We're basically, and this one-time use of carry forward funds, you're proposing to use almost $1 million of our fund balance to address that?
That is, no, sir, that is categorical funding that we, and I think a portion of that is some of the funds that we're losing. We're going to use to get us through a year. We're able to carry it forward for 1 year.
That's a transitional period, a transitional provision.
Yes.
So right now, do you have any suggestions on how we're going to make up the $667,000 deficit?
Suggestions were, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said we had a question. You did.
Okay. If Can you hold that until, those are great questions, I really appreciate that, but since, I am so loud here, since this is the public participation, and please forgive me for the confusion, but right now, Mr. Richardson, if you don't mind, we'll have the public make any of their remarks, and then when it comes time for, on the action agenda, we will certainly be asking you some questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for giving the overview.